Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to The Fix. And as you can see, flexing up in front of me, we got Raimonds Liepins, and we've got Ryan Bowen trying to get a bit of bio wobble on there.
Oh,
Yes, it's all about the angles. As you can see, rubbed off on them a little bit, not in the literal sense, but they both come in today with the mic. I like the fact that you got the little mic in front of your face, guys. This is a nice touch. It's very perfect. I haven't got that, but I do have a very big one. And it's right.
Yeah.
You need it coming like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks for that, Raimonds.
How have we been anyway, guys? We all been good?
Well, I think the UK is trying to play catch up with places like Italy in terms of the severity of the outbreak over here. It is not good. Since we last spoke, our Prime Minister is in intensive care. Yeah. Be serious. We're not playing games. What about you guys?
It's very everything's low in Latvia. We're happy about it, so we're keeping it low. It's about 550 cases, so nothing serious. 2 deaths, and it's fine. It's fine.
Only 2 deaths. You guys are doing well. Yeah, we've spiked, but we're flattening the curve. Everyone's staying home. They're handing out $1,300 fines if you're at the beach or if you're at the park or if you're anywhere. So people are staying home.
Yeah, we have big fines as well. If we're just allowed 2 people walking together or hanging out, and if there's more, you can get up to 2,000 euros fine. So, but again, they have to manage it somehow because, either way, we don't want to play catch up with Italy.
No. Yeah, it's no joke. There is no joke.
No.
I can see from watching Voice of Arm Wrestling and watching Pound for Pound that you've both been working diligently behind the scenes on keeping yourselves strong and motivated.
I did my first ever strict curl.
Hey,
I saw that. Yeah, that's just,
everybody.
It's not bad. It's not bad. Wasn't bad.
What was your weight, right? What did you get?
Well, I feel like I had more in me, but I didn't have any 1.25 kilo plates, so I had to take a big jump. I successfully lifted 63, and then I had to go to 68, and I couldn't do 68. So I feel like 65 I would have got, but 63 went up pretty comfortable. 68. Then bloody Lachlan at there, 82.5.
Yeah. Lockie's a lot bigger man, isn't he?
Well, he's a gorilla. He's
only 103 right now. 103 kilos.
Yeah, I heard that. Jesus.
He's 103 kilos, so that man is 2 kilos lighter than me.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know what the world records are, but Lockie posted that he's only like 6 kilos off the world record for his weight category. So,
RBJ at a lighter body weight was around the 80 kilos and looked way within himself.
Yeah, I think he and Lachlan Adair are battling it out in that Corona Curl competition group on Facebook. If you haven't joined it, go and get in it. It's a lot of fun. But yeah, they're number 1 and 2 on the leaderboard, Lachlan and Rob.
Sounds like a good way to get yourself needing bicep surgery in a time when the last thing you want to do is get yourself.
I'd bet Herman Stevens couldn't make the leaderboard.
Yeah, but arm wrestlers were never the brightest ones. We're never. It's like, oh, my arm is shit. I should arm wrestle at least 3 more times.
Well, look at Paul Maiden from England. Have you seen Paul Maiden? How he detached his bicep in a match at the Iron Arm?
Yeah.
Was it the Iron Arm or was it the British? British, I think it was actually. But detached his bicep, hasn't had surgery, just left it, wrestling like hell.
And it's fine.
Let's give it a few months off. Yeah, be all right. Stick a plaster on it. Yeah, blow the cobwebs straight back in. Competing every day now, wrestling all the time. So, injuries are a strange thing.
Opportunities. Injuries are just opportunities to get a new weapon somewhere else.
That's true. Nothing's more sure than that. Yeah.
Every time I meet you, Ryan, you've gone that little deeper. That little bit deeper. That was so profound. It depends. My injuries, I had 2 reactions to injuries. Usually it was this first. Secondly, it was stay out of the gym. Don't do that stuff. Because when I was young and I used to get injuries, I used to always think the other way, just like, push through it, just carry on. And to be honest, it scrapped me. I actually believe that's the reason, or a big part of the reason why I ended up having the 3 joint rebuilds, because I was sort of a bit disrespectful of when I knew there was an underlying issue, and it was I had pretty serious problems, and just thought that'd be okay. It'll adjust itself. It'll come right. I don't know. I don't know what the right answer is.
I've never actually had what I would call a serious injury. I've never had niggles on my right arm. I've had a significant pains on my left, but never an injury. Never anything I would call an actual injury. I've been lucky, or maybe I've done the right things. I don't know.
So, what about yourself, Raimonds? Have you managed to avoid injury as well?
I got some big cracks. Last was 6 years ago. That just like from going inside too hard, and those were the severe ones. But the biggest one I had.
Ryan's thinking, at what point is Neil going to jump in and react to the? I've had some big cracks. Thanks for that one, Raimonds. But let's have what's happened at the back of the car, son, and carry on with your arm. You share anything?
Yeah, but the big one for me was ulnar nerve entrapment in my right arm that I just get rid of last November. So yeah, but it stuck with me 10 years. In 10 years, I couldn't do anything on the highest level with my right arm, and it was all the time. Your arm muscle feels like your tooth pain, the same way as my tooth.
Damage is a horrible thing to deal with.
Yeah,
really
but
horrible thing to deal with.
That was fine. Don't care.
So, guys, we got some questions.
Of it.
Yeah, we got some questions and a couple of. We got some comments. We got some questions. I'm going to read this one out, guys, and we'll get into it. Okay. This is from Timmy Turner.
Timmy.
Questions. He doesn't play games. In another episode of your podcast, Devon and John talked about strength training and table time in arm wrestling. How important is arm wrestling specific strength training? That's the first part of that question. He says, John Brzenk is obviously the ultimate example that can become a world champion arm wrestler with only table time. But who knows? Maybe John wouldn't have would be even better if he trained in the gym with all the handles, etc., that we have today. And he says that everyone does right now, and that's something we can get into, because I'm not sure everyone does. But he also thinks Devon made a good point when he said that he doesn't believe there would be a Levan if he only trained on the table and did no arm wrestling specific strength training. What are your thoughts on this? Is it possible to become an elite with only table time, or is it an outdated approach?
Good question from Timmy. He's the man. Timmy comes up with a lot of good stuff.
Yeah, he's all the time commenting with good stuff.
Yeah.
Who wants to dive into that first, guys?
Yeah, I'd love to jump in. This is a topic that I've always had a pretty big opinion on. I really believe that arm wrestling is still we're still growing, and what I mean by that is I don't think we've developed globally the ultimate system yet. I think we're still early enough in the sport and early enough in the professional level of the sport that we're still working it out. No doubt John has walked the path where he has preached forever table time. But John always said, every time I've asked him, he always said that it was really dependent on having a killer crew of people to actually arm wrestle with. Without that, you're going to struggle. No doubt once you know how to arm wrestle, being in the gym is effective. But I think if you go only in the gym, if you start in the gym, you miss out on the finer strength, the finer movements, and you miss out on a lot of the combat side of the sport. So I think the table time actually makes you a better arm wrestler by a long way than if you never had that time. So for me, it's like if I was to prescribe something, I would say your first 5 years table, and then from then maybe 80% gym from then on, because you're going to know how to arm wrestle very well if you've been with a good crew for 5 years, compared to if you started out straight in the gym. So for me, I think you can. If you're surrounded, like if you had Devon Larratt, Todd Hutchins, Michael Todd, and Jerry Carteret, like the World Arm Wrestling League house number 1 or whatever, if that was your crew that you were with, yeah, table time, you could do it all the way and become elite for sure.
Okay, I'm going to dive in on this as well, guys. Other night I'm watching a dance program, because we're bored and there's not much on the TV and not much in the papers to watch. So we put on some old YouTube stuff, and my kids are surfing through YouTube, and suddenly one of them comes across Got to Dance, right? Dance TV show competition in the UK. And there's a little kid on there. He's like 10. I think he's called Kai or something like that. I can't remember his exact name, but this kid ended up going on to win Got to Dance, and he's 10 years old. And there's all these really great dancers on there, and they're all doing their stuff. And this kid comes on, and he looks unbelievable. He's got all the moves dialed in, perfect, hitting everything hard. He's brilliant. He's a fabulous dancer. And my son says to me, how can that kid dance like that, Dad, at 10? He's only 10 years old. And I said, well, and this is getting us on to the answer of the question. That kid, number one, has learned correctly. He's been trained correctly. But also, he is a natural, predisposed dancer. Something within that kid's genetic makeup makes everything join up. He can see the light. He can see this end of the tunnel and that far end of the tunnel. And I think one of the simplest answers in this respect is you've got to look at yourself as an individual and what makes you shine within the sport of arm wrestling. Are you a natural arm wrestler, or are you a little bit clunky, a little bit clockwork? And you've got to be very honest with yourself in answering those questions, guys. Now, you can get a guy who is a phenomenal arm wrestler from a technical perspective, from a technical standpoint. They can do it all. The range of movements superb. They've got all the disparate elements of the sport dialed in, and they look aesthetically pleasing. We all know the guy, looks smooth as silk in every position. You get another guy who's been arm wrestling for 20 years, and they may be able to do all of those things, but they never look that smooth as silk application. Ron Bath is a great example of that guy. Ron Bath might not look as clean lines as some guys out there, but is he effective? He's killer effective. He's incredibly effective. And I think that's a really key thing here. You've got to look at, what have you got dialed in? What are you really, really good at? And once you feel like you've topped something out, if you've then got the opportunity to move on to other areas of the sport in order to supplement it, then why not? For example, if you're built to top roll, okay, you're made to top roll, but you're not genetically gifted in the hook, deep inside yourself, you probably know that you're never going to be the guy that's jumping in the hook with Ferret Osmanli. You're just not going to be doing that. You don't want to be diving in with Todd Hutchins. But you may just end up like Latin. Latin's not got an incredibly good deep hook. That's not where he goes. He's not designed to do that. He's not got a predisposition physically to do that. But the dude can top roll. He's made for it. So if you can sharpen that weapon to become absolutely acid, so it becomes a special move. And I think that is a very, very interesting question. How do you sharpen it best? That's the question that really interests me. Are you going to be able to sharpen that better from supplementing it and making it a stronger move? Or are you going to get better sharpness from, as Ryan said there, training with exceptional training partners, a wide breadth of training partners? I do believe in that a great deal. I think that if you train with a very strong subset of people who give you different looks, and in terms of different looks, I'm talking about angles, vectors, Ryan. I'm talking about vectors. It's not this angles garbage. It's all about the vectors.
About to slap you.
I'm the angle man.
There you go. Angles, vectors, whatever way you want to call it, gives you that option. Yeah. And also the manner in which that's applied. Because you can have a guy that pulls in exactly the same position. One of them's fast, one of them's slow. When myself and you, Ryan, have spoke about who I think could beat you and who you could beat. And you might look at a guy on paper and think to yourself, I can slap this guy around, no problem. We spoke about Craig Sanders the other week, and I said why I think Craig Sanders could give you trouble is that he's strong enough potentially to pin you before you get anything on. Potentially. So he can be more dangerous to slower arm wrestlers, to counter punches, than he can be to... It's the same as the Latin. I feel potentially Pearls is a great threat to Michael Todd because of that.
at Dan Mosier. Dan Mosier pins people that are legit stronger than him very quickly, very consistently. And it's his fast twitch that does it. His slow pull's not that amazing, but his fast twitch is, evidence of that.
And it's how much of that is just down to fast twitch, and it's how much of that is down to his repetition of that one style of attack for so long over so many types of individual that he's almost subconsciously got that dialed into a really dangerous weapon, you know? And I think, Raimonds, you were going to jump in on something there, brother.
Yeah, I wanted to first, like Ryan said, there isn't one perfect program that we should all be following and things like that. And I'm as a trainer, I keep pursuing that. I'm just keep looking because I think there should be something that will work for everyone. My opinion, if we look at the most numbers of, doesn't matter, WAF, PAL, WL, the guys that are on the top, they use weights more than they arm wrestle. And it doesn't says that they don't arm wrestle, but they arm wrestle differently. And most arm wrestlers don't understand what arm wrestling practice is. And I think this is the difference. We talk about John, we talk about someone else.
Yep.
I would believe that John he wouldn't just flash guys, just a training session. He would just pin them. He would work with them. He would work them out. And that is big problem. Yes. I see so many guys go to table practice and all they want to do is arm wrestle. They want to pin you. In my opinion, and I got a lot of lessons from a lot of guys, and when you're working on table, you will never discover your strengths and your weaknesses when you're doing it fast. Because even if you can flash pin this guy, it doesn't matter. Next guy will have that one vector that is 1 kilogram stronger. And maybe that 1 kilogram is what opens you up. So the first is the idea, understanding what you want to achieve from training practices. And like meeting Devon, working a lot with Mindaugas, like for past 4-6 months, I changed my whole game because I'm preparing for super match, and it is a different format. So I'm training on table. I'm really working. I'm not trying to pin anyone. I'm just trying not to get pinned. And when you're trying not to get pinned, you start working. And I think that was the difference. This is why John and Devon are so successful. But if we look at the weights show us different story. Guys that build themselves up with weights like Pushkar or Tsiplenko or anyone else, they don't have anyone who's close to their level. They would have to do like super high intensity training session and then arm wrestle some guys, and then maybe they would be at close to their level, and then they could work on those positions like you said, and it all comes together. So I think it's a good combination of both, but understanding what you want to achieve. Like Devon versus Tsiplenko, he was at that point he was saying table time, a lot of table time, endurance, but without that high starting power, nothing. So now I would say work endurance on table, on table. You know, practice your move, practice going in deep matches, and train power with weights.
See, I'm gonna come in with a counter point on that, mate.
Yeah.
I personally think that it's a mistake ever to knee-jerk to the reaction after a match. I know that Devon, I've had this discussion with Devon on a different show, and will do going forward, I've no doubt, when we're discussing it. That's not to say that you can't end up in the right place, but I think basing decisions on the outcome of a single match is definitely, and this isn't something targeted at you, it's just a point to throw into people to consider, and particularly with Devon in that respect. I think it's very, very important that you look at the reality of the situation. For example, in the Denis Tsiplenkov match, the strength gap wasn't close. The other fact in there that Devon's told me at the time was he felt that very early in the match, similar way that we heard from Sarah Bachman when she pulled Gabby, damage was done. Not as significant as we saw with Sarah and Gabby, but damage was done to Devon's chest early on in the match, which disabled him in some areas. the strength gap between him and Dennis wasn't close. Dennis was much stronger. So in order to sort of look at your arm wrestling there and think, okay, what have I got to do? I think it's very important to be very honest with yourself, with you as an individual. And I think Devon illustrates the point I was trying to make a few minutes ago, in that in terms of the actual arm wrestling finesse, the if you say boxer puncher, so your arm wrestler against raw strength, he is very much on the side of excellent arm wrestler. He's very accomplished in that environment. He's one of the most complete technical arm wrestlers that I've ever seen, both in terms of his predisposition to be able to do those moves, and also genetically, he's predisposed to be able to do them very well anyway. He's got, that's hence the name No Limits. He's got it all. He's got the strength, he's got the elbow strength, he's got the well-rounded capabilities in terms of power and leverage. So for him, strength is a key factor if he wants to dominate that elite super heavyweight division. Because in that area, it's almost like the serving ace scenario in tennis. Once you get to that level, it does become more about red line astronomical power. And I think that's illustrated by the majority of the giant super heavyweights, who are extremely strong, and a lot of the Eastern European guys, they are not the most technical arm wrestlers in the world. They're not necessarily technically proficient to the level of a great deal of what we describe as also ran arm wrestlers lower down the pecking order. So there's many lightweights in the world, many middleweights in the world, many light heavyweights, many 100-kilo pullers who can arm wrestle much better technically than those super elite arm wrestlers that are much more complete than those super elite arm wrestlers on the table. Yet they will be less effective on the table because they're just not as strong. It's thin air when you get to that level. The super heavyweight guys, the reason a lot of them aren't that good technically, and there's a number of reasons. Some of it's to do with size, some of it's to do with just the actual physicality of the individual, but also it's to do with the fact that who the hell do they train with? Who's that guy that can sit on the table and make them work? There's probably 3 of them in existence breathing on the planet. So how the hell do you go out and find that guy? Particularly if you're not well-rounded.
I've always thought of being strong in the beginning as a disadvantage because of that exact reason. And if you're really strong, you don't have the opportunity to feel it. I always think that being weak will force you to become a great arm wrestler in the process. And you can be weaker than your opponent and still defeat them to a certain gap of power. But like you said, the gap was too big with Devon and Dennis, for instance. But if I imagine the ultimate arm wrestler, it's someone that is a genuine Hafthor Bjornsson-sized human that moves like Devon Larratt. Someone that has that base power, that also knows how to move to the complete degree that we can in the sport. You just can't see anyone beating a human like that. It's just not going to be possible. So the thing is, I think that where I opened as well, where I said the sport is still developing, I think we haven't had enough people globally to really end up with a Hafthor that moves like Devon. But in 20 years' time, we might have 10 of them in the super heavyweight division because that's what it's going to take to be the world champ eventually. It's not going to be enough to just be a Richard Lupke-style, power-based, simple movement arm wrestler, because when the giant that has dedicated himself from the age of being a kid grows up and he already moves like the dancer that you said earlier, but in an arm wrestling sense, that guy's going to be unbeatable. So I think in 20 years' time, we'll see a very different arm wrestler out there if the sport continues to grow like it is.
Who do you think's the nearest example in the super heavyweight environment right now that's active? Who do you? I mean, the reason I say that, if you look at the guys that are going to, in my opinion, will come out from all of us, it's usually a guy that's progressed from a lower weight class, usually because of the physical reality of this situation, somewhere around the 100-kilo mark, and then they've gone 110 and they've gone up. Latvian's one of those guys. But anyway, who do you think's the guy?
Well, Devon is the most technical super heavyweight out there at the moment, but he doesn't have the power yet. And so he's trying to fill that. People like Evgeny Prudnik, obviously very technical arm wrestler, and is now looking bigger and bigger. Maybe in 5 years' time, he's walking around at 125 kilos, and he's the man. People like Gennady Kvikvinia, he moves incredibly well for a big guy. Yeah,
that's the guy for me. The most complete. Gennady Kvikvinia, for a guy that's currently at and around that level of size, could be the most complete giant heavyweight arm wrestler out there right now. Because if I'm not mistaken, he's much heavier than Devon is right now.
Yeah, and he's fast, he's aggressive, he can pull everywhere, he can counter, he can do it all. So
I'm so glad you raised him. I was hoping one of you guys was going to jump on his ass so that we could make, because Gennady came from 100 kilo. He was super complete then. He was a great top roller. He was great in the hook. He's fast. He's got great endurance. He's got all those elements dialed, and then he's progressed. He's got bigger, and he has evolved in terms of he's made himself bigger and stronger, but he's still got that well-roundedness, you know.
So imagine the future if the sport is big enough and the money is big enough in the sport that someone is willing to commit from childhood to the sport who has a genetic disposition like Hafthor Bjornsson. By the time he grows into his own body, that's a different level of beast, isn't it?
Entirely different level of human being. It's funny. I've been speaking to Sevan Matosian, one of the leading lights who was responsible for the film Pulling John. I'm trying to get Sevan on the show and we're talking about it now to get him to. So let us know, guys, if you'd like to hear this. I want to get Sevan on the show to walk through Pulling John, the history of Pulling John, and tell the stories surrounding that film. Obviously, Sevan now is very much involved with CrossFit, and he did a film around the same time as Pulling John called Every Second Counts. If you can find that film, guys, check it out. Every Second Counts, about CrossFit and the evolution of CrossFit. Phenomenal film. But if you look then and you look now and you look at the stats in CrossFit and what those top CrossFit athletes are able to achieve, it is genuinely incredible.
Same way with the strongman. Like 15 years ago, what amateurs are lifting now, they were lifting. So I think.
Did you hear Lawrence Charley on here the other day?
No.
I had Lawrence Charley on the show, right? And he says, he made that exact point, Raimonds, and he said, you know what, my PBs now, and he's not holding many world records, but he says my PBs in all these areas, and he lists them off, would be world records like 10 years ago. All of them, you know, and he's had to do that just to hang on, and he's not at the absolute pinnacle now because the sport's progressed so far. It's nuts.
So
Go, Ryan. Go.
Okay. I was going to say, so if you were to draw a timeline, a growth chart on arm wrestling relative to strongman, relative to CrossFit, relative to UFC, I feel like we're in our absolute infancy still. And there's so much upside.
I have said this many times, but it's like the same thing. Like, best example, I come from bench press background, so powerlifting. Like, powerlifting really exploded in the last 15 years. Like the records that guys were doing on gear, like now guys are doing without gear, and that comes with social media, with information. And I said this, like guys that are watching the videos that I made 3 years ago, they will be like, after 5 years, they will come into the sport, maybe meet their first guy, and they know technique, they know how to arm wrestle, how to train, and everything else. It comes with information. Less information we have, the dumber we are. Someone knows something and it feels like it's a secret, but it's not really a secret. More we share, everyone gets better. And Devon was the first guy that did this, I don't know, 10 years, maybe even more ago, when he said he goes to some seminar, shows some exercise, comes back in a year, and guys are showing 30 variations like how they are doing, and 2 of them are gold. So I think the same thing is working out right now. more people are sharing. I will go through my Instagram and see, oh my God, this is a great exercise. I should try this. And it goes like this. And more people try things, we get rid of the basically shit that we don't use, and we get in the good stuff. And it comes like so many like guys are like, no one is now in their gym doing full range of motion bicep curls and saying they're training for arm wrestling, or doing pull-ups and saying they're training for arm wrestling. Everyone knows what are the specifics, and more people are into this, faster we can grow. So it's very good that we have Devon Engin talking about it, John sharing his stories, Paul is doing everything from Russian side, and it will grow sport exponentially, and we need this more. Right now, like the biggest YouTube channels for arm wrestling that actually talk are mine and Ryan's, and then it's Arm Wrestling TV that is just competition and just schoolboy and things like that. That is not educational. More educational stuff, and we will grow like crazy. I guarantee it. After 10 years, we will see so many guys will walk in the gym and say they know our arm wrestle, but they've seen all the videos and they instantly know what to do. That's my prediction for the future.
Ladies and gentlemen, that brings us to the end of this episode, but we will be back.
Like the video.
Yeah, get it liked, get it shared.
Like now.
Do it, sub, like it. Get the angles on there. Look at that, look.
You didn't sort your lighting out, Ray.
Mate, last time you were in the truck, Ryan, you had that lighting dialed in, dude. You need to just get that switch on for the end of the shows. Ladies and gents, thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you back on here real soon, motherfuckers. Take it easy, peeps. Bye-bye.